Well, welcome back to today's History Upper Ohio Valley. I'm your host, Bob Connors, and we have some great people here from the City Council of St. Clairsville, Ohio. Beth Oprisch over here, and Mike Smith over there. And we're
Mike,
going to
how are you?
discuss water and, and aqua and stuff that's going on in this city. But before we do, I wanted to just kind of have you each just kind of tell me a little bit about, what attracted you to being on the City Council.
Well, 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, when I decided to run, there was a vacancy in the at-large city council position. And it was just an opportunity to give back to the community. I had the opportunity, I had been working in Columbusville, I've lived in St. Clairsville for the last probably 30 years. And was recently back home. I work for a nonprofit now, and had the opportunity and thought it was just a good way to give back to the community.
Yeah, that's good. How about you, Mike?
Well, I was appointed, first of all. I wasn't elected, so I'm running for re-election this time. But I felt I was at a point in my life where I do have the time now. Kids are growing out of the house, and with my experience, I just felt like I had something to offer for the city.
So you decided to get in. Well,
Yeah. Yep.
and that puts you right in the middle of the water,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is what we want to go to next. So let's start with Beth, and maybe you can give us an idea of what's going on with the water in the city of St. Clairsville right now.
Well, sure, I'll give you from my perspective, right? I don't think anybody disagrees that there are issues with the water and sewer plant, right?
Mm-hmm.
That our utilities are in need of repair and attention, right? So we have been given that information and been told for the last couple years anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
That there are serious issues at both the water and the sewer plant. And so nobody doubts that. So one of the options is privatization. And like I've said all along, I mean, my job, I think, as a council person is to, make a decision. I'm elected to make a decision on behalf of the people, right? But I've got to have good information to do that. And I can only make a decision based on the information that I'm given. So as we've been given information about the water, then some of it is conflicting. Some of it doesn't make any sense to me. And so I continue, Mike and I, and continue to ask questions as to what is the best solution for the city. And I think where we are now is we don't believe that we've explored all options. And so we're still very much I think we should still very much be in the, information gathering process to figure out what is best for St. Clairsville. Granted, selling and privatizing is an option, but is that the only option? And we shouldn't make that decision until we're sure that that's the best option.
Well, that makes sense. How about you, Mike? How would you?
Well, I agree with
characterize
Beth. There's, first of all, I'm not against aqua or privatization, but we do need to explore other options. And like Beth said, we've been getting conflicting information, incorrect information, or no information at times. And it's kind of frustrating because it's hard to make a decision when you don't have all the information in. And there should have been a study done a long time ago, which is Beth put a resolution on the floor at the last meeting to get an independent study done and then go ahead and get with the company, RCAP. And they say that we can get loans at less than 1%, 0.87%. But again, we have to explore every option, and I don't think the administration has done that clearly.
I haven't done that yet. How about,
Clearly.
has anybody done evaluation?
Quick comment on
Yeah,
that,
go ahead.
just because that is the conflicting information. We've been told for the last 6 months as this process is going on that the city, is not eligible to even apply for a loan or grant because our utility rates aren't at 2.5% to 3% of the median household income. So if that's the case, but then we were just given different information 2 weeks ago, a month ago, that said, no, we are eligible to apply for these grants. So what is it? Are we eligible to apply for grants or not? I mean, that's the information that, that doesn't jive. All we want to do, and I think, Mike, I want to echo that point too. I know that there are people that are concerned with Aqua. I do not have concerns with Aqua, right? From the perspective, they're a company, they're a private business, they're you know, this is part of their business, right? So I could appreciate that, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best thing for St. Clairsville. So I think all options should still be on the table. You know, and privatization is one of those options, but I don't have the answers to what would it really cost to fix what we have and to maintain what we have. And that's what an independent study would do, right? That would tell us, okay, this is what you need to fix this, to fix this, to fix this. So then we can look at that. And now we have options. So I guess that's really where my biggest frustration at the moment is now. I cannot for the life of me, I'm baffled what the rush is about this.
Well, that is an interesting point about why is it rushed. One of the things I wanted to ask you guys is about valuation. Did anybody know what this thing is worth?
No.
So how was that? That's the question. How is this decision to sell it for X amount of dollars work?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I don't have the answer, quite honestly. We've never seen. I mean, Aqua has offered what they're going to offer to us. Now, how they valued that, I don't know. But on our end, we should have that done also.
Really?
So we can compare Aqua's bid, which and what they're going to put into the system, to ours, and we can compare apples to apples. So we need to have a study done, not just rely on theirs.
Right.
And I think that we have had other studies that have helped us outline what some of the problems are. Like we have these EPA reports that are saying that we have things that we have to address. Quicksaw has given us an idea of things that need to be done, but even Quicksaw will tell you that was not their estimate. Exactly.
They're all estimates. Nobody's done a study to say exactly what needs done, how much it's going to cost, so we can address if we can afford to do it.
We want a cost analysis, not just an independent study of what needs to be done, but then what's the cost associated with that? And that's what my resolution, you know, was trying to get at. Let's sit down with RCAP and let's have an extended meeting and let's figure out what they could help us with. RCAP services, what Julie Ward had told us at a council meeting was that there's certain services they pay for. We don't need a rate study right now. We need a financial feasibility study.
Exactly.
And that's something that they do at no cost. Why would we? I cannot understand how that hurts us.
Yes, it begs to question the whole process of what they're doing. Do you guys know how much income you have from the city gets from this plant? Roughly, what
Like currently?
What is it? Just from the bills, from the people paying their water bill. Must be a number.
Yes, I mean, and I wish that I could rattle off that number. What my understanding is prior to a couple years ago, before we implemented rate increases, right, that we were losing water every month. We're not losing water every month. You know, we're making enough we were billing, and it was costing us more money to make the water than we were actually billing. So now those figures are figured out that we're not doing that. We're not losing money, and we're able to put just a bit away to not just like maintain and make the water, right? But also put a little bit to start fixing some of the issues. Not enough. And I think that Mike and I have been consistent about this. Understand that if we sell the water, or if we keep the water, you know, the rates are going to have to go up. And everybody that we've talked to, and I say everybody that I've talked to understands that. But the question is, how much are they going to go up? Nobody wants the rates to triple. And to say that we want people's rates to go up that high is just, it's a mischaracterization of my point of let's make sure we have all the information before we make a vote of this magnitude.
Anybody ask the constituents what they want?
Yes, I ask everybody that I see. I was in the bank the other day. I asked a girl, she lived in St. Clairsville. She said no, so I didn't even ask. But when I ask, I don't say how I feel one or the other, because I don't want them to think they just to agree with me. They don't want a confrontation. But I've yet to run into one person that says they're for privatization. Now, I don't know how informed they are, but that's just what I'm hearing. Yeah. Now, if everybody said they were for privatization, then I'd vote for it. I mean, you have to listen to the citizens, what they want. But right now, I'm hearing, I don't know who everybody else is talking to on council, but the ones I talk to are not for it.
Is that not the same for you?
As I, interact with people, I'm like, so what do you think of the water situation? And I'm kind of like Mike, I'm not like, I'm not trying to steer them a certain way. As an elected official, right, then I think we should listen to the constituents and we should, value what they have to say. Now, I also think that it's up to us to help educate people that might not be educated. And if I would have heard people say, oh, privatize, 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 I still would want an independent study. I still would want to put the cart, I wouldn't want to put the cart before the horse, right?
Right.
So, but to answer your question without, trying to be too long-winded, which I think I am, is I have not, no one has said to me that they have favored privatization. Now, if I give them a forced choice, triple your water rates or privatize, they're like, I can't be paying triple rates. But that's where the answer that I want to get to. If we truly had to triple rates, if we truly have to do that, then we might have to privatize. People can't afford to go from paying, $50 a month to $150 a month.
Well, what's to keep the private company from doing that?
So, I think that at the end of the day, they're a private company that needs to make a profit. I think that in their bid, and we don't have a contract, so I don't know what final figures are going to be, right? I have no idea because we haven't seen that. But in their bid, they had talked about that they were willing to kind of lock into the rates that council's already approved through 2021, I think. And so the rates would stay low for a minute, right, for a few years. But then we have to go through the Public Utility Commission if they want to request a rate increase. But at the end of the day, whether that's 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever they invest in the city, they're a company that's going to have to get their investment back, right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
So
Just like we would if we keep it. Only difference is they need to make a profit, and normally any government, you just try to break even. You don't try to make a profit off your citizens.
Yeah.
But so my feeling is that their rates will be higher eventually than something we could put out there.
and that might take a while. But our job, right? Because I think Mike is right. I would agree that, we need to cover costs. We don't need to make a profit, right? So maybe the rates don't go up right away, right? But aren't we supposed to also be looking at the future? If part of the reason that we're here now is that future planning didn't happen 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
That there's been inaction, and so we've got a lot of issues that should have been addressed all
Right.
along, right? So isn't that part of what we're supposed to do, is look toward the future? And so I got to think about the kid that's going to move to St. Clairsville in 20 years.
Yeah, so you have to look down the road 20 years from now and say, where are our residents going to be? What are they going to be doing with their water? That's part of your
Yeah.
job.
That's how I see
You can't be
it.
short-sighted here.
Yes, yes.
So it's a lot to talk about, apparently.
Yep.
And that's all we want, right? Is we don't want to rush this. This is not a decision that doesn't have lasting impacts for years, right? So this is definitely something that should be taken seriously, and we should turn over every stone before we make that call. And that's all we're trying to do. Nobody's talking about kicking the proverbial can down the road for another 15 years. That is not what we're asking for. We're simply asking, let's get into communication with RCAP. Let's do a financial feasibility study. Let's do a water audit. Let's figure out truly, can we or can we not get grants based on where our current rates are now? And let's get a cost analysis so we have all the information before we make a vote of
This kind of character.
Yeah.
But you were about to say.
Sorry.
The last that we heard from our service director, the figure was the city's losing 52% of its water through some leakage somewhere. There's a loss somewhere. If we could have somebody come in and tell us where that's going,
Where that leak is.
that's half of our water that we could sell. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, that would be that's a product.
Yeah, you're losing inventory basically. You can't. Another store can lose inventory 50% and survive. So I think we need to find that water lossage, And then, that's another piece of the puzzle, and that's something RCAP, I think, they said they can help us with.
They can help us
How much
figure
the
out.
city, what? I'm getting a, I'm sorry, but how much the city is using that's not metered?
We don't know that.
Yeah, you don't know? They don't know.
We don't know that.
I mean, the city building doesn't have a meter on it. I mean, that's one of the first things you want to figure out too, right? And I think it's one of the first things that makes sense. I mean, I think Mike's point about, I mean, we've got the water plan issues with surface water and just the aging structure of that building, but we've got distribution that we've got to talk about
Right.
too. And we've got all these lines, and if we're losing, truly we're losing, because those figures have changed from 30% to 52%, right? So how much water are we losing? How much water are we not accounting for, right? Those are things that we've got to tighten up and we've got to figure out. And that's part of investing in the infrastructure of our city, you know?
And there's some very easy things off the top of your head that, like, for example, if we cut out the water loss and we were able to sell that water, and for example, if we have 25 to 2,600 paying customers, if we just tacked on $20 for each customer per month, that's $50,000.
A month.
A month, and that will pretty much pay our loan payment. So these are things that really have to be looked at, but they're not interested in looking at those.
And they don't even know what they're selling, essentially. They say they don't want to, and I'm understanding they don't want you kick the can down the road. That's an old line. But what are they? Do they even know what the can is?
No, that's the
And
problem.
the problem is the residents are still going to be here
Yeah.
and dealing with this decision.
Yeah, so again, I don't know what they're thinking, but I honestly don't know.
So any other thoughts you'd like to leave us with on this last?
Well, my opinion is I think citizens should get involved, and they are, trust me, that was packed at the last council meeting, but they need to call their councilman, and hopefully they answer their telephone, because I'm hearing from people they're not answering their phone. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but they just need to get a hold of their councilman and see if they'll at least agree to Beth's resolution that she put out there. Let's have a study done. If we end up with Aqua, we end up with Aqua. You know, they've been around for 100 plus years, Fortune 500 company, but again, they have to make money. We don't. So I think we need to take the time, the 3 months, have a study done, and then consult with RCAP, see if we can get loans.
Yeah, that makes sense. You have any other thoughts?
Yeah, I
on
mean,
that?
the same thing. I just want to straighten this process out. We should have done the study and
2 years
seen what the
ago.
options,
Yeah.
you know, and then, you know, if Aqua is, you know, like, if Aqua's the viable choice at that point, we will have done our due diligence. And I guess that's all I want to do, is make sure that when I make a decision of this magnitude, that I've done my due diligence. And that's, I think, all we're trying to do. We're trying to listen to the residents, and we're trying to make sure that all options are on the table before we have to make this kind of vote.
Well, that certainly makes sense. And so good luck to both of you. And
Thank you. Appreciate
thank
you
you,
having
Beth,
us.
for
Thanks.
joining us and
Yeah, really
explaining all
appreciate
this,
it.
Mike. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you coming in.
Thank
It's
you.
been-
Nice meeting you.
I think the folks sitting at home who are paying attention to this have learned a lot. I have. So I say
appreciate
keep
that.
up the good fight.
Thanks.
Appreciate that.
And we will be back. Hello and welcome to today's History Upper Ohio Valley. I'm Bob Connors, your host, and today we are in St. Clairsville talking about water, and we have a great guest from the City Council, Perry Basile.
It's a pleasure.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Before we get started, I wondered what brought you to St. Clairsville?
Well, my wife and I are from the Chicagoland area, and we've owned a painting and decorating company for about 25 years. And the economy in Chicago was getting pretty bad, and we were right in the middle of the whole recession thing, and we said, you know, we need a fresh start. Let's just go. And so I applied out here for some work, and I got a job in gas and oil, and now we're here.
That's it. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
So you like it too, right?
We love it. We
We
love
love
St.
it.
Clairsville.
Well, that's excellent. And so you're with gas and oil right now?
Yes,
That's what you're
I am.
doing? And you're the city council member in St. Clairsville?
Correct.
And speaking of the St. Clairsville City Council and the water,
I knew you were going to go there.
everybody's going there these days. So maybe you can tell me a little bit about the water issue that's going on and what your perspective is.
Sure. Well, the real issue is we have a deteriorating water plant and infrastructure, our distribution, which is our water lines, and our sewer, which is our sewer that goes to the sewer plant. They're old. A lot of the areas are 80 years old or older, and we've got some newer areas that still are maintained and are in good shape, but a lot of the city needs some help. So when I first got into city council 2 years ago, just about 2 years ago, they started bringing up the idea about privatizing the water in the sewer. And what that means is a private company would come in, they would buy our assets, and what would they do is they'd manage it. They'd make everything EPA compliant, they'd do repairs, and that's what we were told about what was going on with privatization. So as we started hearing this over the last few years, or the last year or so, we started realizing that, hey, you know, we haven't looked into us doing it. Why can't we get loans? Why can't we get grants? And so we started asking these questions about it, and we were asking the city manager, Mr. Zukel, and we were asking the mayor about it, and their answers were, we don't qualify for anything, we don't bring enough money in to get loans, and we would have to double and triple our rates to get anything, to be able to qualify for loans. Well, probably about 6 months ago, we started looking at Tim Porter, who's the city council president, Beth, Oprisch, and Mike Smith, and I. We started looking into other options because it didn't click right with us. We're like, how can we not get loans? So we were looking at RCAP, and they're a government agency that helps small communities like us qualify and put their information together and introduce it to OSHA for loans. And we realized that nothing had been done. There had been no independent studies. There is no master plan for the city. And first of all, before you qualify for anything, you have to have a master plan. They're not going to just say, hey, you know, you need some money, here you go, we'll write you a check tomorrow. So the deeper and deeper we get into this, we're realizing that none of the front work to take care of this on our own has been done at all. So we started pushing and pushing on this. We're like, come on, let's get RCAP involved. Let's get engineers involved. And we started going to the water plant. So we started talking to the employees. We realized that we need to do something other than sell our water, because that's only one option. You can't go to somebody and say, hey, do you want to sell the water plant or do you want to sell the water plant? That's not an option.
Yeah, it's not at all. And you know, the private industry thing is, I'm not opposed to private industry myself, and they can do a good job in a lot of things. But I'm feeling the same way you are for this situation in St. Clairsville, that this decision you guys make is going to affect the residents of this city probably for the rest of their life.
It will.
It's a huge decision, and not one that should be made lightly. So I think your questions that you're asking, that seems to be reasonable. Is there some sort of time frame you'd like to spend exploring this and learning more before any decision is made?
Yeah, I'd like to see us. Well, from what we're talking about with RCAP, they told us that it would take about 60 days for them to do their thing and package us together. And then, actually, it takes less to do that, but it would take some time to get it to an engineering firm and hire them to come out. So we're probably talking 90 to 120 days to do this.
Yeah, that sounds like a reasonable compromise.
It really is. And it gives us another option, and it gives the residents an option of what we can do. If it came to the end of this, our exploration, it turned out that the best thing for us to do is to sell to a private entity, then I'd have to say, then we have to do it.
Yeah.
But we don't have that option. We don't have that information. And I surely am not going to do this by guess. We're not going to guess at numbers.
Yeah, well, it's pretty much when you consider the constituents and the people, the residents who live here, you know, your job as an elected official is to protect their interest.
That's correct.
And it seems to me that is what I'm hearing from you and some others that are interested in looking at this a little closer, is that residents have to be looked after first.
That's correct. Now, just recently, if you're familiar with what had happened last Monday at council, we had gotten a few weeks ago an EPA letter with all the violations for our water plant. And it doesn't include our distribution or our sewage. It was the plant itself. So I read through this, and I had asked one of the county engineers that's contracted by the county to come with us to the water plant. Tim Porter came with me, and we sat and we asked questions about all these violations that needed to be fixed. There was 19 of them, and almost all of them were administrative, meaning that they didn't file things on time, they weren't keeping the right records, and it's not the guys in the water plant. It's not their issue. It's our administrative, and there were a few things some major things that need to be repaired, but they're definitely not in the tens of the millions of dollars that's being floated, as a false narrative. We can do this.
Yeah. If you wanted to, as a city, you can sell some of that water, right?
We could.
Now, would that same thing be true of Aqua? Can they buy this and then sell the water elsewhere?
Here's the caveat, and we have to understand that we're at our maximum capacity to make water. If the city grows in the future, then we're going to have to look for alternatives. Plus, the EPA is really making people or pushing people to get off of surface water like we have. Our best option really is the county, because they had that $85 million grant/loan, and they're upgrading their water plants and they're building a new one down by the river. We're going to be able to tap into their system in another 3 to 5 years. We could easily keep our water plant open that long before we hook up into the county.
Yeah. And see, I think that's an important aspect that should be thought about.
And with the loans that we get, that our cap is saying that we could have for under 1% for 30 years, that doesn't raise our rate a whole lot per hookup in the city. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because we need a small amount of money to nurse our filtration system, our water system. We need a good amount of money to fix our distribution, and that's where the loans would come in, and those loans would cover repairing our water lines and our sewer lines.
Mm-hmm. Well, that makes a lot of sense that you should be looking at this. I'm glad that you and some others are taking a close look, because the ramifications, and I don't want to sound like I'm against private industry, because I happen to like the private industry, and I think they would do a great job if they did get it. I don't think they're going to harm anybody. They're going to do a good job with what they do, but I think the citizens' needs and the residents' needs have to come before anything else in this decision, what they're going to be willing to pay for, because ultimately all of this is going to be paid for by the people who live in St. Clairsville.
Exactly. Do we want to be controlled and owned by another company, or do we want to do it ourselves and control our own destiny? It's a very simple question.
Yeah.
But in order to make the right decision, we need to have the right information.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I want to let you know that the people on council that are not for selling the water at this point is Beth, Oprisch, Mike Smith, and myself, and we're the ones kind of spearheading this slowdown. Let's slow this down a little bit. What's the big rush? Why do we have to sell this like now? We waited 30 years. Is 6 months going to hurt us?
Yeah, no, that's
to get the right information out?
It's a good question. So I wish you well in that endeavor and keep after it.
Okay.
And maybe you'll get it all done. I think you will.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming.
I appreciate it.
Perry Basile, I hope we can get together and talk more about this in the future.
Let's do it.
In the meantime, we have to go now. This is today's History Upper Ohio Valley. I am your host, Bob Connors, and on behalf of myself and the great people at ESV Teleproductions, we'll see you next time.